There he is. Good to see you. I I don't have audio here. I can't hear you myself. Can you hear me? Is there a sign? I I have got no audio here from you. Um, not sure why. Mike. Yeah. I heard something for a second. There we go.
Yep. Now,
We're running.
there we go.
All right.
All right.
Trying.
I thought
Everything's
you had no audio,
mirror.
so it's great to have a governor who's a sound tech also.
We're working on it. Well, I'm working on being governor. Sound tech we got. Well, it's good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. How was your New Year? Everything great?
Well, this far it's been great, and you know, everything's going in the right direction. We had a great night last night. A group of a political group here in New Hampshire that I associate with, not to give their name away or anything, but had a nice bonfire last night at a benevolent home where they take in adopted children, and they adopt horses and goats and chickens and any sort of critter that anybody just can't handle, can't afford to keep, or for whatever reason they're getting rid of. But it's in the same town as I'm in right now. This is Loudon, New Hampshire, where the New England, it's the New Hampshire Motor Speedway, they call it, but people call it the New England Speedway also. Um, anyway, the whole track is shut down until tomorrow, so I thought it'd be a good place. It's just a nice
It's a good.
facility to promote because it brings so much to this state. Kind of put us on the map big in 1990. Um, but it was created by a local New Hampshire guy. He put it all together, and it turned into a great big deal, and it's led to all sorts of local um, programs, and the fire department gets fire trucks and all sorts of things like that. We take a big hit um, because every time they have a race here, we don't have enough ambulances to haul off the bodies. It gets wild. I mean, they have on Father's Day every year the national uh, championship for motorcycle races in the country, and they're all in. And to Concord, even if there wasn't all the traffic, it still takes you 40 minutes to get to the hospital, and they lose lives. And I thought that transportation in general in our state. Now,
Hey,
we
hey,
need to,
before we get going, Sean, on your specific topic that you wanted to get on today.
anyone you
I know
want.
there's we've untapped so many people in this community. So I just want to take a quick moment for the people who haven't, seen the Chosen Kingdom before, don't know, what the Magi are, and don't know who you are. Most importantly, is for you to come and tell us, who is Shaun Fife? What is he looking to do? Why is he running? What is he running for? The brief of everything from a high level, and then we'll talk about one of your topics today, and then in the days to come we'll branch off into other stuff.
That sounds great. Is there too much of an echo in here? I'm just trying to get away from the noise of the traffic.
It's a little bit, but I think it's
Uh,
okay.
all right. If it say something if it's got to change. Well, so what has happened is I've experienced some amazing hardships in my life. And the thing about me is people say I turn chicken poop into chicken soup, pardon my French, but that's just how I do it. I just take the worst situation, I immerse myself in it, and do what I can to turn it into the best thing you can make of that, or as best things, you know? And I like to use synergy and diversify things. I make things so complicated when they could be so simple, but in the end, when you think it's all going to fail, you realize it all just works. And that's kind of what we need here in New Hampshire. And I figure the worst thing going on right now that I could possibly put my time and effort into is our government. Because we, the people, are subject to whatever they do. We put ourselves in that position, but they don't have the same goals as I do. So I'm putting myself in as a candidate so that I don't have to wonder if somebody's going to do what's right for us. And nobody else will have to either, because I'm trying to create create an environment where the people who produce benefit themselves. And in a way that I mean that is like, if you grow food, you're going to be the one that's going to eat it, for instance, you know? So it's in your best interest to grow it well.
You know, it's interesting, like you parallel it to what we've seen go on, and I don't mean to take you off of your track for 1 second, but I'm looking recently at Truth Social, and you know I'm an investor and I'm a big believer in it. But you know, the same thing that we're seeing going on in New Hampshire, the same thing that we're seeing going on throughout the country, is that no matter what side of the aisle you're on, sort of these people who think they're in charge come and sort of take over the whole entire thing. So that way, a player like me on Truth Social or you in New Hampshire has a very tough time, you know, breaking through because there's this big beast on the other side that's saying, hey, this guy's getting out of line. Let's get him kicked off. Let's reject him right out of the gate. We will band together. We're the popular people. We'll say something that's incorrect about him, and boom, he's gone. And so the combination of what you're doing, which is really, you know, you're you're really getting down to grassroots leading, coupling up with a strategy of the Magi of taking the technology and using their same techniques to your advantage. We're going to push candidates like you through where you can actually get elected. That is the goal here for Magi and Shaun Fife. Back to you. We want to see, you know, what it is you're actually going to do when you get there. So I just wanted to throw that in there, is that when you look at locally what's happening to you there, it's happening in every single arena we enter as patriots.
That's right. Well, you got to create an environment where the people who produce benefit. And that's our biggest Achilles heel in America today. And New Hampshire is no different. We're so benevolent. This country is give, 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 give. But the person that they take it away from so they can give it is suffering. And so we're trying to create an environment here where you don't have to hurt somebody to help somebody else. And if somebody else helps somebody else, they benefit themselves. You got to it's like you don't want it to be a one-sided, lopsided sort of thing. You want everybody to. The echo in there is getting to me, so I'm
It
gonna
is.
come up
It's
back.
actually a lot better. So
All right.
perfect.
Yeah, sorry about that. So, anyways, um, so this is an example, like I was talking about last week, uh, using the manpower from prisons to work inside grows here in New Hampshire that produce uh, the organic foods that we're looking to create and in abundance. The people who would benefit are the prisoners that work there. They'd be getting better food in the prison. You see, even though it's costing them something, they're getting something back. Not just the food, but they get the education. They get out of the cell. They get rehabilitation. Um, and they're the bad guy. You know, if that's how good we treat the bad guy, imagine how good we're going to treat the rest of us. But it's to help them give back to who they hurt. I like everything about that synergy. And that's what I'm saying is everything here is so divided. And I'm trying to bring it all together and make it efficient, but at the same time preserving our history and our way of life. And, you know, for example, we are the first state in the nation to vote in the primary for the election for the most powerful country on earth. I mean, this is quite a place. I mean, I was born here and my family's here, but that's quite a thing. It's a responsibility. And when you have somebody in that position making a bad example, it spreads. But it goes just the same the other direction. When we set the right example, it's going to go viral around the world. Everybody's going to see, oh my God, did you see what New Hampshire just did? Boom, let's do that. So we're trying to be a trendsetter, and in doing that, it's about the citizens. It's about the people, trying to make it best for us, but good for everybody. You know, there's nobody that bad on earth that they need to be brought down further. You know, people get low enough on their own. And so we'd like to give everybody an opportunity to do better as part of my plan. Uh, and to get back to what I was saying about roads, that's one way to make everything better. Here in New Hampshire, our cars get stove up driving around on all these roads that are just neglected. It's tough to maintain, but there is a plan to put a road that connects the seacoast to our capital by connecting Rochester to 393. And the plan's been built since the 80s. It was all paid for, approved, and sat in archives since then. And I'm trying to make it so that road gets put in for the sake that children will be able to get to school safer. They'll be able to travel further, faster, without having to speed. And it'll save lives when an ambulance is trying to make it to the hospital. They don't have to go over a bad road or follow weird directions all over New Hampshire in an area that they are not familiar with. And once you get the person, I mean, it's a smoother ride, it's a safer ride, and it's going to save lives. But while you're saving lives, is, well, what pays for that? Well, the commerce. You're going to save so much money in shipping. You burn so much gas driving in circles here just to avoid the land features and the different historical landmarks that we're all trying to preserve. But you got to have a way that is fast and efficient in order to preserve the other things around it. So
You know what's interesting, Shaun, is coming from New York and New Jersey, we take these things for granted because
you have them.
we have them, too many of them, you know? So to hear you say it as a guy who's from the city, as that's your specific problem, you know, it's really interesting to me that, you know, that's a whole other problem for your state that we're not even aware of, right?
That's right.
So it's a,
You know, it's a specific local topic, but that's why I'm running for governor, not for president.
exactly. So, you know,
I,
it's wonderful to hear you address something that's so specific to you guys. Let me ask you this. So, you know, you talk about the indoor grows and making New Hampshire produce all of its goods and services that it can itself. How do we get that accomplished for New Hampshire?
well, what you need infrastructure for one, and so it's getting to be that you have to have a controlled environment due to the potential contamination of new things that never even existed before, and especially with all the well, you look at, we import so much here in New Hampshire now, and the idea is I want to produce so much that we just export. That way, your foods aren't sitting in some boat offshore waiting for a quarantine that they're not going to give them before the stuff spoils, creating these huge inflations, and you're not meeting the demand anyway. By just creating it right at home, right here in New Hampshire, you're having what you need where you need it. And when you have so much that you can't even use it all, then you're going to start benefiting anybody around you. And part of this road coming to Rochester is that'll make it so we can bring our produce that we make so much of to the seacoast, and we'll be able to ship it all up and down the East Coast. We'll be able to help anybody in America that can't get their foods from whatever country they're coming from. They'll be able to get them in New Hampshire, sent to them without having to go through international quarantines. It's going to benefit anybody with everything that we come up extra with. That's where you get the revenue back into the state. But um, I plan on doing this honestly by reconfiguring existing infrastructure that uh, has a negative effect on the public in general. And it's pretty obvious what I'm talking about there. You look at Walmart, you look at something like that comes into a little town state like this, and it absolutely destroyed us. Since the '90s, Walmart has been that nice guy that's scratching your back with a knife.
Can you give us that microcosm for a small town? Because like here, there's so many of these things that when one new one comes to town, it actually grows the businesses of the area because there's more coming to that one thing. But when something different is happening, I think, in rural America. Can you explain what that is?
Well, your inability to acquire the produce, it's just not here. If that gets picked over by the time it gets out to the rural areas, uh, it's the bottom of the barrel. It doesn't have the flavor, it doesn't have the quality. It's already lost half of its shelf life. By starting in the rural areas and moving it out, then it's already fresh, the hardest place that it is to get to. And then by the time it gets into the city, then that the demand there uses it up faster. So you're taking it to somewhere that it'll go away. You'll use it up quick in the end, instead of hauling it off to somewhere where it might perish. It might meet the need.
The excess
It
goes off.
inverts the system, and that's what creates the ability to provide. Um, well, it's not just with food; it's with power. Like, I want to make the power at home, at people's houses. You know, so when your power lines go down, you don't lose your power. You keep your power. You just stop selling it until they fix the lines. It's you already have it where you need it. Is my goal.
And let
So
me ask you this. So like local business owners and it's a different lifestyle there where you live, where everyone has a specific skill that they use for barter generally. So, a Walmart suddenly comes into town, great, they hire 30 people to work there or however many work in a Walmart, and that creates those jobs. But what has been the net effect of something like that coming into town for business in general?
well, the net effect has been it's destroyed. The businesses are gone. There's the local owned businesses are gone, and the only ones that still exist are the ones that make it convenient to get stuff that they went and bought at the same place. Some people can't even get to, because we don't have the local transportation and infrastructure. Like, we don't have the trains, we don't have the bus systems. You can't even get a cab. Uber drivers can't find you because they don't have internet service on their phone. A lot of these places most of New Hampshire is rural. It's just don't have the reception. So these guys trying to be a Uber driver can't even find the place that they're supposed to pick you up because their uh, system doesn't work in that location. So it's a bunch of fails all for the same thing. And I think I'm getting off track with that.
Yeah, what's interesting now that I think about it, I mean, we still have the same thing going on here where there's more businesses doing better in general when a Walmart comes to town. But what winds up happening is Starbucks comes, all these big name things, and they're all doing well. But, the one, individually owned business that does well is a dry cleaner. You know what I mean? That's the only non-corporate thing, and maybe a deli that winds up surviving in all this.
Yeah, deli meat, $11 a pound right now. Ham, like the second cheapest meat to grow, is the most expensive one on the shelf. Goofy stuff like that. Here, it doesn't need to be that way. We have the infrastructure. We're just not doing it. And so I'm going to promote people producing what we're using, and right here, so that you're not paying for the gas and the truck driver and you know it, instead you're just spending the money on doing it instead of getting it.
So start off and give us a single example of what a Walmart by you looks like in 3 years.
Well, wall to wall produce growing. Um, they, so the parking lots uh, won't be. It'll be like a farmer's market in the parking lot. All right, and you won't have the general public going inside these places because you don't want to contaminate the facilities once we've turned them into indoor grows. But you're going to be producing produce in Walmart if everything works out right. And in a controlled environment with security where you can keep everything you need's there. You just have to change it. So we plan on turning Walmarts into farms, basically indoor farms. And instead of them having all this packaged stuff that they hauled in from wherever, if they could get it, they're going to be producing the same things right there. But already so many different places across the state. But it's going to be what we use here is what they'll produce. They're going to no longer be the place where it just sells it. It's going to be the place where it makes it. And that's how we're transitioning the infrastructure, is going from providing things to actually, instead of providing the availability, actually providing the source. You're turning a middleman into a source is what it is. That's
And
what
then
will happen to Walmart.
and then you would think that stuff like, say a chicken farmer who's growing for egg harvesting might put himself nearby in order so that he could sell his eggs there.
All right.
Right?
Now,
You're
I
creating
was really thinking about like Walgreens or something turned into what your local chicken farmer. You already have Walgreens everywhere, and to turn them into a hen house is kind of what my concept is. You're going to repurpose infrastructure that's ruining our local small business economies for the benefit of these people who invest from out of state, and all the money just goes away. I'm changing that is the whole point. Uh,
now think about me. I'm an economist, former Wall Streeter from New York. How do you convince me that taking eminent domain on the big boys changes the whole situation for New Hampshire? Because I got to say, you have for me, but how do we change everyone else's mind who's unwilling to see, that deep into it, that you're not destroying something to destroy everything, you're destroying something to build something greater?
well, this is the guy on Wall Street making all the money is going to want to eat the food we grow because he'll understand that it doesn't have mRNA in it, mRNA, messenger ribonucleic acid. The goal is to create safe food, and no matter what you're invested in, you're going to have to find that somewhere. And these people are going to realize New Hampshire is the place that's producing it, and they're not going to want to mess with that because they need it themselves, and they can't trust what they're getting now as it is. And so that's the pitch. Is yeah, it might change your whole investment portfolio, okay, but it's not just a gift. Um, it's the money that it saves. It's going to transform the whole community's budget.
Uh,
Instead of spending it on shipping things and trying to acquire things, you're going to spend it on producing things. And when you produce, you always make more than you need. And when you make more than you need, you end up selling some. And that's where they make their money is we're going to be shipping out of here. We're going to be exporting, and they're going to want to invest in that. It's the same equipment working loaded the other direction. And it's not like we're not going to import anything anymore. Uh, we're just going to be getting everything we want ourselves, so we don't have to rely on imports.
and,
And yeah, go
and I
ahead.
want you to think about this is like, think about for the general American is we make all this hype about Russia, 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 right?
Yeah.
Do we ever cut them off? Everything that we
All right.
think that
So
they've ever done, we've never really cut them off. So the point of it is that Shaun Fife changing New Hampshire, becoming the governor, taking eminent domain upon these big corporations, changing the the contract of doing business with New Hampshire is not going to produce what they tell us it's going to produce, which is New Hampshire is going to get ejected from all business dealings with the rest of the states. That is not what's going to happen. You know what
Well,
I mean?
we used to not need anything from any of the other states, and it's my goal to not need anything from any of the other states. I have nothing against the other states. I think every state should be able to have what it needs at home. I'm just doing it here for us first. And with Russia, 70% of the world's fertilizer comes from there. And so part of the goal with all these, like having the state doing, growing chicken, growing cows, growing different animals, you save the fecal matter and you actually make real fresh fertilizer here in New Hampshire. The way we used to fertilize our fields was just with the manure from the cow barn, you know? So you turn one of these facilities into an actual fertilizer production. You know, pick your names. We got to pick our battles here, but you got to do these things somewhere. But we're going to be producing fertilizer indoors, so it's not getting rained on by any cloud seeding or other. Um, that way, it can't get contaminated. It's a controlled environment where you produce your fertilizers, and then you can optimize your quality of your produce through that. But yeah, nothing going to waste is a big deal. We waste so much. And to use these wastes in the old beneficial way, that it turns a bad thing into a good thing. And instead of all the manure being a problem, well, suddenly you're using it, creating great produce with flavor again, and you don't have to buy fertilizer from Russia. So there, you've eliminated an income for Russia in the process of providing an income for yourself. And eliminate the shipping of it back and forth too, and everything else that goes with that. But we're trying to disconnect all these strings around the world that manipulate our economy and our politicians, and we're trying to bring all the control home. And it's not to destroy these businesses; it's to make them better, re-engineer them. As I'm not trying to destroy Walmart investors. I'm just trying to stop Walmart from destroying all the other businesses. But they we need the infrastructure. And so I tell people the way that it's played out is you're acquiring it because it's an emergency. You have to have this now. We don't have time to build these things. We have to take over something to do this quickly. And so you use eminent domain because of the emergency to commandeer the infrastructure. It doesn't mean these people just lost it. They'll be compensated, but it'll be as you'll probably work out something with them that goes like this. We produce produce there. It produces money. You'll get a percentage of that until the value of your property has been paid back in full. I think I lost you. Oh, there you are. I can't hear you again.
I'm still here. I'm just popping around. So
Right. Yeah.
I got I got I got an ambulance outside or something. So I wanted to. You can hear me, right? I wanted to get
Oh
out of
yeah.
that noise.
Well, prayers go out for whoever needs that. Golly, traffic's tough. And
Well,
you get in the ambulance and you think, oh, thanks heavens, I've been saved. But geez, they still got to get you somewhere. That's just the ride, and I that's a big deal. We got to make safety fast. We can't make it like we can't drag it out, and we got to make response prompt, and we got to make the care expedient. It's just as fast as absolutely possible is what I'm gearing up to do. So I want to create corridors that generate the ability for these people to save you. They try so hard, and the faster they save you, the faster they can go on and save the next person too. You're getting more work out, more more benefit out of the same amount of investment. You know, that same ambulance makes 2 trips instead of one. You only have to own half as many, right?
Yep.
Well, anyways, not to go
No,
off it, but I'm glad
it's
whoever's getting service there.
it's
But we
a
need more of it.
it's a I think what you're talking about here is probably an important issue for most of this country, and people like us in the city just don't even realize it because I have, 3 hospitals within, 10 miles of me. You know what I mean?
Yes, in hospitals like this, I think that they should be wearing some sort of something that you can see that tells you who funds them. You know, they get bumps in the arm from this, that, or the other. Who owns you? Who's paying you? Who are you getting your check from? What insurance companies give? If a lobbyist, an investment, you somehow you got to find out where the money's coming from when it comes to these hospitals, because like this COVID vaccine, for instance, they they get a $400 or something, however much bonus for each person that's in their practice that gets the vaccination. But the thing is, they bait it out so that unless you do it to like 60 or 70, whatever the number is, percent of your practice, then you don't even get a dime. So every single person that comes in there, they're not forcing it on you, but they're basically paid to convince you it's a good idea that you should get it too, just so that they end up getting their bonus.
Here's
That's
here's what here's what's interesting is I was on the phone with one of my clients just 2 days ago, Sean,
yeah.
and he's switching his insurance because it's become too expensive, right? And he's from New Zealand. And we're having this discussion, not talking about politics, but about insurance. And I say to him, one of the biggest problems in the market is that we are providing these things, meaning, all of these new injectable technologies that used to be taken care of with a pill, and it's extremely expensive. And what's going on is they are all colluding in order to make the most amount of money. A drug that is $6,000 a month is being pushed on you not only from the doctor, but the point of what I'm telling you is why would you need the TV to tell you you need this certain drug because you have eczema? You go to your doctor and your doctor tells you that you have eczema and this is the best product for you, right? So the point of it is that they're spending, $3 million for a Super Bowl ad for 15 seconds, all to get you to buy something that the doctor should be telling you. So when I said this to him, he goes to me, I was sitting with a bunch of my European friends and we're all looking at it. And we're going, we can't believe what they do over here in that they push these drugs to them through the media because it's not allowed in Britain, you know? So it's an abnormality in the way we process things that has made it, among other things, become impossible to get real health care because at this point, most of us in our community feel scammed by the medical field. I happen to not even really go. Luckily, knock on wood, I don't need to, but it would be a last choice for me. I would really need help.
Yeah, I know people that just won't even go to the hospital because they don't trust it. That's not where we want to be. But so, kind of this, a little side note here brings to mind the digital currency. Like, part of the reason why I'm trying to take out these chains control over things is because they're forcing you into something they control you with. And when they're not processing cash, and everybody knows what I'm talking about, they just almost don't even take cash anywhere anymore for whatever reason they say. They're pushing you towards digital currency, and that's something that they can just pause on you, like through your phone, like, oh, suddenly you can't connect, or you got to have something in hand. and they're taking the ability to get things with something in hand away from you so that they can control it from remote places. And from a chip to a tattoo, or you get a pill and they're going to track you in a 15-minute city and know everything you spent, what you spent it on, when, where, how, all of it. That's a destined failure happening. Like, that is communist control in at the root. Like, so we're trying to generate a way around being forced into the monopoly that creates the environment where they can do that to you. I guess is what I'm trying to say is, yeah, we're
Yeah.
trying to break apart monopoly control so that there's competition, fair pricing, more abundant, more availability, more convenience. You don't have to travel as far to get the thing that you're trying to look for, because it's not just one person in town that has a cheap deal on it. You spend all your money driving there and back, when we can make it so everybody gets what they need where they're at without being forced into something that they don't want to use, like digital currency. And some people might want to use it, fine for them. But I don't want to be forced to have somebody have a button somewhere where they just turn off your ability to purchase food.
And so, how does New Hampshire get away from that, Shaun?
Tokens. Cash. But we're going to, when I'm elected, we're going to use tokens. And I say tokens because they're not taxed. And so when you're using the token, you won't be paying a meals tax when you dine out. So anybody using the token is going to avoid extra taxation. But it's going to be a physical thing in your hand, not a digital currency. You've got to have um,
Coinage.
you call it coinage, but it's a token, or else they're going to tax you. It's just the legal terminology that they're going to force you into using. But you have to have a way to barter back and forth, where somebody doesn't take something you can't afford to give every time you need to use exchange goods. And it's essentially it's theft. It's not like you're doing that voluntarily, like you want to pay somebody some extra money for something that you don't even believe in every time you need something. So we're going to cut that whole thing to the side, make it so you can acquire tokens, uh, use them for essential needs. uh, you'll still be able to use money here. It's not like you can't use money in New Hampshire anymore, but you're going to have an opportunity to um, buy gas,
Look,
or buy clothes, or buy uh, vehicles, or any sort of goods. The tokens locally is going to level our economy, and it's another conversation completely how that all works. But uh, working it out with a bank, I don't want to say exactly what it's going to be until we know exactly how it's going to be, because it is a huge legal process uh, dealing with commerce, and the government's hooks are in it so deep. To avoid going to jail, you really have to um,
but the
do your
point of it,
due
and the
diligence.
point of it is that if the chief executive of New Hampshire is standing behind a token to be used locally.
We've done it before. We used to pay our tolls on the highway with these tokens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody could use the tolls on the highway, but you'd go buy the tokens with cash. All right. So the state was getting cash when you purchase a token, and that's how they even paid for the road. Uh,
Sounds
the
like the New York City subway system.
right
That's how they did it.
now, intend on making people who work on roads here benefit from the quality of the road and the use of the road. If somebody, I plan on doing so much so fast that part of the way that these people are going to be compensated is going to be residual income coming from toll from the road that they produce. And it'll be through these tokens. That way, Uncle Sam isn't taking 30% of everything we're trying to pay for our own infrastructure here that we need. You can't give
So
Uncle Sam 30% of everything you do. The Civil War was about 3% tax. People were dying. Right now, we're headed into a deep depression. You know, not to condemn us, but I mean it's inevitable. They're talking about rainbow currency, they're talking about BRICS currency, they're talking about all these other currencies. New Hampshire just needs something that's going to be stable while there's all this turbulence, and something that's reliable here at home that they can get and not wonder what it's going to be or who's in control of it. It's just us in control of our own lives is all that's going to be. uh, I keep circling back to it. I know it is important that we find a way around the big corporations and big government just draining our pockets for nothing more than just because they can. We got to take that away. We got to stop letting them, is what it is. So did that ambulance
you,
get out there all right?
I here it's every 10 minutes over here. This
Wow,
is what life is in the big city.
wow. So to give you an idea what it's like here, uh, it's been years since I went to a race here. The last one I went to, they had 6 ambulances when the race started, and once those 6 left, we had to wait for those same 6 to get back. Even though people were still racing and still crashing and still needing ambulances, the show goes on. People paid and they're doing it. But we don't even have another ambulance to pick them up with. We run out after 6. Wild. Like, we got to change that. It's not that funny, but I mean, like,
Uh,
wow, still like
me,
that. Like that for
meanwhile,
Civil War.
meanwhile, we probably have 6 spare in the shop that are never used over here. You know, it's a huge difference in the way of life and what our challenges are here. Relative to what
What, what,
yours are.
what would you say is your biggest challenge? Not to take it off of New Hampshire, but I mean, Magi is a national thing. What's your biggest challenge?
Well, my biggest challenge, you all know what that is, which is, you know, I hate to even get back into it with what we're going towards, but that is just in getting out the message. It seems that when you're delivering a message that is, not with the mainstream, and by mainstream, I mean, you know, away from the the MAGA base and now going to, I made the name Magi almost as a joke, Shaun. It was,
It's no joke now, is it?
it's partially as a joke to say, hey, we use these acronyms and we put them forth, and a little play on, the three wise men, and, it just fits into everything that we're doing. But it's also making a joke out of what this whole thing is that's going on. Because, you know, I don't know if you've seen me recently on Truth Social, Shaun, but I've been, a little agitated at people. And it's because, you know, all the people that got to see the last couple of weeks of what has been going on in my life, and you would think at this point, everybody would just be like, you know what? Let's get on board and really push forth what it is that Mark came across 3 years ago, right? And it just hasn't seemed to happen. So my biggest challenge would be to get out a message that can penetrate and make a difference, because my bus hasn't made a difference. My tapes of capturing what happened with our authorities during these years hasn't made a difference yet, and it's because the real truth is not really being allowed to flow. So I think in all of this, where I hope we get to is a place where we can begin to really see the truths of real people. And that's what I think you are, Shaun. It's why I support you, why Magi supports you is because, we want to see people like you win, you know?
It's about family. And I think the reason why I make good decisions the reason why I intend to make these good decisions for us is because I'm related to everybody in the single state. My family's been here so long that I, I couldn't date here. There's just nobody I'm not related to. That's all. I had to. And my when I got married, I met my wife in Alaska. I got married a second time. I met her in Florida. She's from Puerto Rico. I'm not married anymore, but um, my second marriage was actually taken apart because of COVID. With the vaccinations, um, my wife's second wife was a teacher, and she was forced to have the vaccination in order to even perform her job. Everybody had to have the vaccines, and her family being in Puerto Rico, if she wanted to visit her family, she would have to have the vaccine to even travel there or leave there. And so she was forced into it because her values are family. And they were going to destroy her family unit if she wasn't going to take the vaccine. But I explained to her, I said, I didn't have my faith in it. I said, we really, if these are the decisions that you're going to make, it's kind of the end of the relationship. And that's what tore us apart was she went that way and I stayed pure blood. And uh, it's a shame that you got to make the hard decisions like that involved with a marriage destroyed over some experimental drug they're going to force on you to keep your job. I mean, it's wild what just happened, you
And
know?
they did that to us on purpose.
That's why I'm single. I'm committed to being a governor. I'm not looking for another relationship. This isn't like a dating ploy here. I'm explaining I wouldn't date right now. It's not an environment where you could even raise children anymore. And I'm trying to recreate an environment where children don't get indoctrinated or poisoned unwillfully against the parents' will, or the parents don't lose their job and can't afford to raise children just because they're not willing to be poisoned. Like, this is crazy. So the reason why my campaign's called Choose Life, Vote Fife is because there's not going to be any mandated medicine or anything you want to call it, whatever you want. A mandate isn't going to prevent you from having your job. You know, something something on that level, you can't tell somebody, well, your military's got to have it. Well, that was wild. Forcing something experimental on our military, something that was otherwise illegal globally. I mean, suddenly you're allowed to use DNA in a vaccine just because of this, because they were calling it a pandemic. That's got to be um, absolutely got to be prevented and protected. You're right not to have that happen to you. But wow, I just can't believe that
Sean,
happened.
I can't believe it happened to you. I'll tell viewers, a story that happened to me that was during COVID. And, just to couple up with that is, I sell insurance, and a service provider of mine took me out to lunch with my son who entered the business, right? His
Yeah.
first business lunch during COVID, everything was freeing up, and she invited me out to lunch. I invited my son, told her he was going to come if that was okay. We go out. During a nice lunch, we have a COVID conversation, and she reveals to us that she believes my son and I should not be allowed in the same hospital as her and her family. That we should be separated out because we did not vaccinate and they did. I had the discussion nicely. My son, actually, I let him respond because I was a little, I was trying to hold back, and we left there. and I gave the person 1 year to call me and apologize, and they never did. And I pulled all my business exactly 1 year later. I I tried, Shaun. I tried to be the better person and not allow her to have the consequences of it. And I tell this story because it just amazed me that a person could be so deplete of human value that they couldn't come to terms with it even for the money, of what they did to a 19-year-old child of their client. It's baffling what has been brought upon us to make, neighbors hate neighbors, wives hate husbands, husbands hate wives. They've destroyed the essence of America.
So that brings me back to the Truth Social. Here's the full circle here. You said that you conflict on Truth Social. It's really the only platform that I use personally, and the bickering and the arguing back and forth turns into name calling and f bombs and middle finger emojis. It gets so volatile. Like, we need some way to promote love, togetherness, a way to join together. And that's part of why I came to the Speedway here, because there's so many different people from so many different walks of life, but the race fans are all over this country, and no matter where they come from, they come and root for their car or their team, but they're all in for they're brought together by the sport. They might all pick a different uh, favorite car to root for, but uh, it brings them together. And we need more things to bring people together instead of pull them apart. And I wish Truth Social had some effect that brought people together instead of being a platform where MAGA has an upper hand and they can win the number game in an argument. Like, you need a level playing field, and you, instead of people ganging up on one another, like, find some common ground, find something good in each other. And there's something good in everybody, no matter how absolutely evil you think they are. There's something good in everybody, and we got to start focusing on that. That's the way
I
our
agree.
and yeah, that's all I was
I
gonna.
I think it's a good point to end on, is that, in all of this, what both of us, our hope is that we can get out a message of unity around solutions. Because, all the kicking and screaming that we all do is all meaningless if we do nothing and Jesus doesn't yet come to save us, right? We all know, everyone sitting here, Shaun, myself, and most of our viewers, all, most of us are going to be believers in Jesus and or of the Messiah, right? And that is what we're trying to get here. We're trying to bring everybody together for the greater good and solutions-based greater good. So just throwing out all the love is great, but we have to be able to come bring something to the table, and that's what I'm hoping you're able to do here, Shaun. And we want to help you. I want you to have a great rest of your first day of the year.
Invest in whatever benefits everybody. That's my best advice. And everybody benefits from love. I hope everybody has a loving New Year, happy New Year, and keep Jesus. I love you guys.
Let's go. Praise Jesus. Have a great day.
You too.
See
Have
you
a
guys next week.
next week.
Thanks, Shaun.
Bye now.
Bye.